I have a memory of being in second grade class, sitting on the floor as the teacher was reading us a picture book. And in typical fashion, I was more interested in whatever was sticky on the bottom of my shoe than what was going on in class. And so I don't know what the book was much about, and I don't remember what the teacher was talking about. But at one point, she decided, before she showed us the picture on that page, she says, why don't you go back to your desks and draw me a picture of what you think is going to be on this page. It must have been a really engaging story. But I didn't hear the whole prompt. I just heard, go back to your desk and draw something. So I went back to my desk and I drew the coolest car. It had big tires, it was red. And of course, then she wants us to show our drawings. And I was so proud of it. I was the first to stand up and show off what I drew. And she said, Scott, that's very nice, but that's not what I asked you to do. And it's always stayed with me that you can still do something nice and still not do it right. And I think that if Jesus had the chance to talk to this leper after this moment, he probably would have said the same thing. What you did was nice, but it's not what I asked you to do. Here, Jesus does this incredible thing for this man. This man's struggled with leprosy, presumably for many years. Leprosy was a contagious skin disease. You'd have open sores, you'd have decaying flesh. And it was understood to be contagious. So there was no treatment for it until about the 1940s. Like, think about that. It was in Jesus' time and long before Jesus' time, people had leprosy. There was no other option than quarantine. You remember what COVID quarantine felt like. Imagine having to do that your whole life. They didn't have the opportunity to be around other people. It would have been dangerous for the community for the leper to be close to others. And so they really did have to spend all of the time that they were leprous, which could have been their entire life, they had to spend that far away from other people. A very lonely, sad, depressing life. And it was custom, it was kind of required of people, if you had leprosy, then you better make sure that you don't, you better make sure that you stand out. So if anyone's near you, you need to shout that you are a leper so they don't get too close to you. You want to make sure they keep distance. You didn't want anyone to accidentally brush against you or something like that. And so what we have here in this gospel passage, a leper came to Jesus, kneeling down, begged him, Lord, if you wish, you can make me clean. First of all, it would be really uncustomary for a leper to approach anybody, but he has this confidence in what Jesus can do for him. And I find it interesting, he says, if you wish, you can make me clean. He doesn't say, if you wish, you can heal me. The two things were related. In Judaism, there was we get a lot of it in the book of Leviticus. There's a lot of rules around being clean. And clean was more of a kind of a spiritual state. It was about being ready to be in the presence of God in the temple. And usually it had to do with bodily fluids and death, for the most part, was what it had to do with. And so there were certain things that would make you unclean, but you would have to just be purified, and then you'd be clean and go to the temple. The hard part for the leper is that there's nothing that can be done to make them clean, right? They're stuck in that state because they can't be healed from that. And so this man is asking to be made clean, which is a hint that, yes, he wants to be healed, but more importantly, he wants to be able to go to the temple. He wants to be clean so he can once again go worship with the people, to offer sacrifice, to go and pray and feel like he's close to God again. This kind of beautiful insight into his heart a little bit there. And Jesus is moved with pity. He stretched out his hand and touched him and said, I do will it, be made clean. Think just for a moment about what that touch must have meant to him, especially if he has been for years unable to even be near other people. To be touched by somebody in such a loving way had to mean the world to him. The leprosy left him immediately, and now he's clean. But then Jesus gives him this interesting moment. He warns him sternly, it says, and he says, see that you tell no one anything, but go show yourself to the priest and offer for your cleansing what Moses prescribed, and that will be proof for them. I think sometimes we would expect that people would go tell the whole world about what just happened to him. But Jesus doesn't want him to tell anybody, wants to keep it quiet. Now, there could be a number of reasons for this. Theologians have a million guesses. One of them is that it's just not time yet for Jesus' arrest, and the more famous Jesus becomes, the quicker they start closing in, the religious authorities and the civil authorities. And so it's just not that time yet. There's no need for that yet. That time will come. But also part of it is, it seems, that Jesus just wants him to do what the Scriptures prescribe. And the Scriptures say that if a person who had leprosy thinks that they no longer have leprosy, then they need to go to the priest, and the priest will declare them clean so they can come into the temple. So he just wants the man to just do what the Scriptures require. And I kind of wonder, did he want to convert that priest? Right? You know, he probably has in his mind what the priest is at the temple that day. He's like, oh yeah, if he goes and he presents himself to that priest is going to be so amazed that this man who's been a leper for so many years, maybe he'll come to believe in Jesus. I'm sure that Jesus, he's a strategizer. He probably had some plan in there. And what the man does is the exact opposite. He went and told everybody. He publicized the whole matter and spread the report abroad so that it became impossible for Jesus to enter a town openly. We get it, right? Because his heart is just so full of joy and excitement that he just wants to tell everybody about this. But in exchange, see, he has exchanged obedience to Jesus for the sake of telling everybody this great news. We can understand it, but it's also not being obedient to Jesus, and it's caused Jesus some difficulty. Now he can't go into a town openly. Like, Jesus wants to preach. Jesus wants to convert people's lives. He doesn't just want to do miracles. Instead, now he's stuck outside in deserted places, and the people are coming to him from everywhere because they want to see this miracle worker. There's something that's good in that. But Jesus wasn't looking for a bunch of curiosity seekers who want to see him perform some great deeds. He wants to get into people's hearts, and he wants to change people's lives. And I'm sure many of us know people who have experienced miraculous things in their life. They've experienced the hand of God, and that it still hasn't changed their life. They haven't changed. Just because we experience a miracle or we witness a miracle doesn't mean that we suddenly want to live a holy life. Jesus doesn't just want our fascination. He wants our conversion. He wants our hearts. And so Jesus wants the opportunity to preach. He wants the opportunity to challenge people's hearts to live a holy life. He doesn't just want people to be fascinated with him because he can do some amazing things. And so this man did something that was nice, but it was not what Jesus asked. We're just a few days away from Lent, the season when all of us do lots of things that are nice, but not exactly what Jesus wants. If we get to the end of Lent and we're really good at avoiding soda, but we're still a jerk, then we've done something wrong in Lent. Lent is about the spiritual growth that we need to do. What does Jesus want us to do for Lent? That's the bigger question. Lord, what do you want me to do? And are we willing to do that rather than the thing that I think would be nice to do, the thing that I want to do? Yeah, that's the biggest challenge for us. And I know that that's hard to set aside, but and it takes some prayer. Lord, what do you want me to do? Maybe there's something that's been on your heart for some time, and you just kind of push it in the back of your mind. Maybe that's like work on that one big sin that has been kind of bugging you for years. Maybe it's to decide you're actually going to love your enemies, whoever you might define your enemies to be. Maybe it's to actually pick up the catechism or actually pick up the scriptures or actually set aside more time for prayer every day. It's going to be different for every one of us, what Jesus wants to do specifically in our life. But that's the best thing that we can do for Lent, what Jesus wants us to do. Let him tell us and then do what he wants rather than go do the nice thing that we think we would like to do. So today, we ask for kind of the joy that the leper had in being made clean, to have that fascination with who Jesus is. But we ask for the grace to be obedient to whatever he wants so that we're not just doing something nice, but we're doing what Jesus asks.